The hangar doors were thrown open beneath the blazing Texas sun, revealing rows of polished Apache helicopters that shone like symbols of war. Near the edge of the ceremony stood Captain Marcus Dalton Grime beneath his nails, a wild beard shaped by 4 years on the streets, his eyes locked on the aircraft he once flew. A sergeant hurried over to Admiral Cortland and spoke words that sounded absurd. "Sir, there's a homeless man here claiming he can fly the old Apache. Says his call sign was Ghost." Colonel scoffed, ready to have Marcus escorted out. But the Admiral went pale. Ghost wasn't just another pilot. Ghost was a legend, one they believed had died years ago. Before continuing, if you're watching from anywhere in the world, tell us where you're joining from in the comments. And if stories of courage, sacrifice, and second chances resonate with you, consider subscribing. Your support helps us share powerful stories that honor forgotten heroes. Now, back to the story. 4 years earlier, Marcus Dalton's name carried weight in every Army aviation unit from Fort Rucker to Bagram. He had flown 287 combat missions in an AH-64 Apache missions, so dangerous other pilots avoided the briefings. Night extractions over Fallujah. Gun runs across Helmand Province. Close air support so tight his rotor wash blasted dust into the faces of Marines he was saving. His call sign, Ghost, came from his ability to slip into hostile airspace without warning, unleash destruction, and disappear before enemy radar could lock on. He wasn't loud or boastful. But when a mission was nearly impossible, when weather grounded everyone else, Marcus would quietly raise his hand and say, "I'll take it." His co-pilot, Lieutenant Danny Chen, liked to joke that Marcus could fly an Apache through a keyhole during a sandstorm. Danny always carried an old brass compass, a gift from his grandfather, a Korean War veteran. Before every mission, he'd rub it and say, 90 years of luck in this thing, Ghost. We're untouchable." For a long time, they were. Then came February 9th, 2014. In Afghanistan's Korngil Valley, Taliban ambush erupted. Marcus and Danny were providing cover for a convoy when the radio filled with panic. 3 Humvees trapped. RPGs incoming, casualties rising. Marcus didn't wait for orders. He dropped altitude, shoved the Apache into a punishing dive, and opened fire. Enemy fighters scattered. Marines dragged their wounded to safety. For 6 minutes, Marcus and Danny held the valley alone, buying time for reinforcements. Then the missile warning screamed. Danny spotted it first. "Calm as ever," he said. "Missile lock. Ghost. Deploying flares." "We're good. We're good." The missile ignored the flares. It tore through the tail rotor assembly. The Apache spun violently as Marcus fought the controls, battling physics, alarms, and the ground rushing toward them. He managed to level out just enough before impact. The crash shattered his shoulder, broke ribs, and split his face open. When Marcus came to, hanging upside down in the wreckage with blood filling his mouth, turned his head. Danny's eyes were open, staring into nothing. The brass compass was still clenched in his hand. Marcus lived. Danny didn't. Neither did the 2 crew chiefs aboard the Black Hawk that tried to extract them, and was shot down moments later. For men gone, Marcus was awarded a medal and praised for valor. But every night, he relived that cockpit, hearing Danny's final words, "We're good. We're good." The VA gave him appointments that led nowhere. The PTSD diagnosis came with pills that made him feel hollow. His wife, Ellen, tried. She really did, but Marcus couldn't explain the blood. The nightmares, the guilt that gnawed at his chest. After 18 months, she left. The savings vanished into divorce and medical bills. His pension was delayed, then disputed, then buried in paperwork. He called the VA weekly. Voicemail, silence. He sold his house to pay for treatment the VA wouldn't cover. Then came a motel, a weekly rental, his truck. When the truck was repossessed, he walked to the I-35 bridge outside Keene, Texas, sat beneath it, and realized he had nowhere else to fall. For 4 years, that bridge was home. Marcus owned 3 things: a creased photo of his flight crew, all dead now, a battered Apache flight manual he read nightly by flashlight like scripture, and Danny's compass, sealed in plastic, still gleaming. He never sold it, not when he was starving, not when winter came without a coat. It was the last piece of who he used to be. He survived by being unseen, quiet, no trouble, no begging. He took day labor when he could, loading trucks, sweeping lots enough to eat, nothing more. At night, he watched the stars and remembered flying. The clarity of the cockpit where everything made sense. The other men under the bridge left him alone. There was something about Marcus, the way he stood, the way his eyes followed movement, that made people step back instinctively. One night, a young veteran named Kevin was attacked by 3 men trying to steal his backpack. Marcus didn't shout or rush. He simply stood, walked over, and placed himself between them. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The attackers took one look at him and walked away. Later, Kevin asked, "Who are you, man?" Marcus shook his head. Nobody, but somebody remembered. Sergeant Tom Rivera had been a young Marine in Sadr City in 2007. His convoy was trapped in a kill zone. Minutes from being overrun, when an Apache appeared out of nowhere, flying so low, Rivera could see the pilot's helmet. The helicopter stayed for 14 minutes under heavy fire, suppressing multiple enemy positions until help arrived. 23 Marines survived that day. Rivera never forgot the call sign he heard over the radio, Ghost 11, guns hot. Years later, Rivera was stationed at Fort Cavazos, living quietly in logistics. When the base announced a ceremony for the 50th anniversary of the Apache AH-64, Rivera volunteered to help. The event was massive. Senior officers, retired generals, a reporter from Army Times, and Admiral James Cland himself, a key figure in the Apache's development. The highlight was a fully restored 1984 Apache, returned to flight for a symbolic 12-minute demonstration. Marcus hadn't planned to go, but that morning, something pulled him there. Maybe the sound of helicopters. Maybe the date February 9th, 10 years since Danny died. Maybe he just couldn't stay away. He walked for miles in the heat and stood outside the fence, staring through chain link at the Apaches gleaming inside the hangar. He didn't try to enter. He just wanted to remember what it felt like to matter. Rivera noticed him, dirty jacket, long beard, hands gripping the fence. He almost walked past, but something stopped him. The man wasn't looking with curiosity. He was looking with recognition. "You okay, sir?" Rivera asked. "I used to fly those," Marcus said quietly. Rivera smiled politely. "Yeah, they're incredible machines." Marcus nodded. AH-64D longbow, 30mm chain gun, Hellfires, 287 combat missions. Rivera's smile faded. "What was your call sign?" Marcus turned. His eyes were sharp, focused, ghost. The word hit Rivera like a blow. The box of programs slipped from his hands. "Say that again." "Ghost 11. 1st Cavalry Division. Iraq and Afghanistan. 2003 to 2014. Rivera's breath caught as memories flooded back. The ambush. The Apache. The voice on the radio. "You're real?" he whispered. Marcus said nothing. Rivera grabbed his arm, pulled up the sleeve, and saw the tattoo coordinates etched into skin. 3,320 north. 4,425 east, Baghdad. Asterisk, oh my God. It's you. You're really him. What Marcus didn't know was that inside the hangar, half an hour before the ceremony was due to start, disaster had already struck. The assigned pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Barnes, had collapsed from a heart attack. He would survive. But he was being rushed to the hospital, and the flight demonstration was suddenly impossible. Colonel Bradley Henderson, who was overseeing the event, was livid. "We have the Admiral here. The press. 200 guests? And now we don't have a pilot." Nearby, Admiral Cortland stood in full dress uniform, his chest heavy with medals. He shook his head slowly. "This aircraft is from 1984. No fly-by-wire. No digital assistance. It's all hydraulics and manual controls. Most modern pilots have only flown the D models. Who here has actual hours on the original Apache?" No one spoke. Henderson's jaw tightened. "Sir, we may have to cancel the demonstration." That was when Sergeant Rivera burst into the hangar, breathless, pulling a homeless man by the arm. Every head turned. Henderson's face flushed. "Sergeant, what is the meaning of this?" Rivera snapped to attention but didn't release Marcus. "Sir, this is Captain Marcus Dalton. Call sign Ghost. He says he can fly the Apache." The hangar fell silent. A few older officers exchanged looks. A young captain, Sarah Mitchell, gasped. Henderson looked Marcus up and down the filthy jacket. Tangled hair, the smell, and curled his lip. "Sergeant, get this man out of here before I have you both detained." Before Rivera could respond, Admiral Cortland stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Marcus. "Ghost?" he said softly. Marcus met his gaze and nodded once. The Admiral's expression changed completely. "Captain Dalton, I thought you were dead." Henderson moved between them, arms crossed. "Sir, with respect, we can't take someone at his word. This man looks like he hasn't bathed in months." "You expect me to believe he flew an Apache?" Marcus said nothing. He didn't argue or explain. He simply stood there, exhausted but upright, eyes forward. Captain Mitchell stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Sir, Ghost isn't just any pilot. He's in the textbooks. The Sadr City extraction, the Cornjal Valley stand. We studied his tactics in flight school." Henderson scoffed. "If he was such a hero, why is he living under a bridge? Real heroes don't end up like this. This is stolen valor." Admiral Cortland's voice cut through the room like steel. "That's enough, Colonel." But Henderson pressed on. "We have procedures for a reason. We can't risk our aircraft and reputation on a vagrant." The Admiral turned back to Marcus, his tone gentler. "Captain Dalton, I need to know something. Can you fly the 1984 Apache? Not the demodeled, the original. Analog systems. No digital aids." Marcus swallowed. His throat was dry. "Yes, sir." Henderson laughed harshly. "Oh, he says yes. Well, that settles it." The Admiral ignored him. "Captain Dalton, tell me the emergency startup procedure for the original Apache, step by step." The hangar went quiet again. Every pilot present understood the test. The 1984 model's startup sequence was outdated and complex, something only someone deeply trained on it would know. Marcus closed his eyes. For a moment, he was young again, back in flight school. Danny Chen beside him, after another endless day. Then he began to speak. He recited the entire procedure, flawlessly battery, fuel checks, APU startup, RPM limits, temperature thresholds, engine sequencing, hydraulic pressure, rotor engagement, flight control checks, every detail, every warning, every number. When he finished, silence hung in the air. Tears streamed down Captain Mitchell's face. Henderson stood frozen, mouth open. Admiral Cortland smiled a deep, genuine smile. "What's your call sign, Captain?" the Admiral asked. "Ghost, sir," Marcus replied quietly. The Admiral snapped to attention and saluted. "Captain Marcus Dalton." "We thought we'd lost you." The reaction was immediate. Captain Mitchell nearly collapsed, grabbing the landing gear for support. "You're real." "I wrote my thesis on you." Sergeant Rivera dropped to his knees, sobbing. "You saved my life in Sadr City. I was there." Whispers spread through the hangar. Recognition rippled outward. Then applause, slow at first, then overwhelming. Soldiers saluted. Others stared in disbelief. Colonel Henderson stood at the center of it all, his face draining of color. He had just publicly humiliated a living legend. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. The Admiral turned to him coldly. "Colonel Henderson, step outside." Henderson left without a word. The Admiral faced Marcus again. "Our demonstration pilot is in the hospital. That Apache needs to fly in 20 minutes. Will you do it?" Marcus looked at the old aircraft. His hands trembled. "Sir, I haven't flown in 10 years. I'm not rated anymore." The Admiral placed a hand on his shoulder. "You just recited a startup sequence most active pilots can't remember. You are still a pilot. Will you fly?" Marcus felt fear not of flying, but of hope. He had buried Ghost, convinced himself that part of him was gone. Now, surrounded by people who remembered, He wasn't sure he could survive losing this feeling again. He thought of Danny's compass, of the men who died, of everything he lost. Then he looked at Rivera, still crying, saying, "You saved my life." "I'll need a flight suit," Marcus said. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood before the restored Apache, wearing a borrowed suit that didn't quite fit. His hair was still wild, his beard long, but his hands were steady. The Admiral addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, today's demonstration will be flown by Captain Marcus Dalton, his call sign Ghost, one of the finest Apache pilots this country has ever known." Right. The applause thundered. Marcus climbed into the cockpit. It felt like home. The systems were analog, mechanical, familiar. His hands moved without thought. Engines came online. Rotors turned. The sound he'd dreamed of for a decade filled the air. Ghost 11, ready for departure. Ghost 11, cleared for takeoff. "Welcome back, Captain." The Apache lifted off. For the first time in 10 years, Marcus was flying again. The aircraft responded like it remembered him. For 12 minutes, he flew with calm precision. No showmanship, just mastery. When he landed, the hangar erupted. Later, in a quiet office, the Admiral spoke plainly. "You need help, and you're going to get it. Full benefits, full care, housing. You're not going back to that bridge." Marcus hesitated. "I don't know if I can be that man again." "You don't have to," the Admiral said gently. "Just be you?" Marcus accepted treatment, healed. But instead of returning to the cockpit, he returned to the bridge, not to live there, but to help others leave it. 1 year later, standing at sunset beneath the I-35 bridge, Marcus held Danny's compass. "We're good," he whispered. Then he sat beside another struggling veteran and said the words that mattered most. "It's never too late to come back home."